Welcome back, everybody.
This is cute.
Yeah, we have Calvin yelling at, I forget her name, but an awesome Calvin and Hobbes clip. I have the complete collection, and I just love it. It's hilarious. So.
Well, and this is good because we're talking about objection handling, and I feel like you picked a very cute, unique image for that.
That wasn't me. That was Jordan.
Jordan.
So
good one, Jordan.
Well done, Jordan. Thank you. Got a thumbs up from him.
How cute is that? Love
okay,
it.
So there comes a time. Well, first of all, let me just speak to this. We talked a little bit about the market earlier on, and you have a lot of people in your database right now who have pent-up demand who want to sell.
Yeah.
That is just the reality. We saw the number of listings really kind of spike coming into the fall time and then obviously drop off at the end of the year. We expect a lot of those to come back on the marketplace. And this is the time to get people's houses on the market. February, March. If all of a sudden they're thinking, well, let's wait till the springtime to May and April, traditionally, that is not the best time. You want to get it where there isn't a ton, where the market's not flooded with activity. So today's the day you want to get on this. But when you talk to people, naturally, they're going to have objections. People want to list for too high. They're not completely confident in you. They have a million other things. They want cuts in their commission, things like that. So we call these objections. I just want to make a statement before we get into this that you're not going to convince somebody. You're not going to manipulate somebody into selling. But there is a time where it is actually in their best interest, in the heart of hearts, with you representing their best interest, that you know that this is the best decision. And it's important to give people perspective. So they call it objection handling because that's a classic sales thing. But I want you to think more, it's like, here's some ways to give your clients perspective when they have some questions about selling.
That sounds really good. So we have 9 that we're going to talk about.
We have 9 that we're going to talk about.
Which is great. And so just so you guys know, so some of what we're talking about is in the bachelor program as well.
It's a pure excerpt from day 5 actually, but we don't cover all of them in day 5, which is nice. They're there for reference, so we're going to talk about them today.
Yeah, but just kind of a plug for their good stuff in the bachelor program. If you haven't taken it, it's a super good course. So before we kind of get started, I really like hear how we talk about the objection handling process because I think that these 3 things, to just keep that in the back of your mind, are good. So what you have here is 1, validate their concern, 2, clarify their concern, and then educate them. So I think to your point, it's not just trying to change their mind right away, but you kind of start off being a little bit empathetic, having a sense of understanding, and then providing a little bit of clarity versus just jumping into trying to fix the issue right away.
Yeah, you need to have a process when you handle these, and you need to get very comfortable using that process. We actually used to train with flashcards, so you would write these 9 objections down on flashcards, and someone would just flip them up and say, hey, here's, will you cut your commissions? I don't think you're experienced enough. We want to list for higher. And every time we had to follow the same process. Jordan, we got this to put up on the screen here,
great.
The objection handling process, if you haven't put it up already. But the validate the concern really quickly here. The reason they have the concern, you have to appreciate that it is a valid concern. You can't just say, that's a dumb question. So you just have to say, oh, I appreciate that. If someone says, hey, can you do it for less? You just say, yeah, I can totally appreciate that, and clarify it. What specifically about the plan, the process, in terms of the value, are you concerned with? So clarify it. And then they give an answer, and then educate them. Let me show you. So this is, again, try to use tools and visuals wherever possible. Never tell them what you can show them is absolutely imperative. So anytime you start that process, someone asks you a question, I think you're too new. Okay, I totally appreciate that. What specifically about my experience are you concerned about? And then let them answer, because now you can really isolate it and get down and handle it. So,
I like it.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's start with number 1.
Yeah.
So number 1, we want to wait. So we want to wait. And again, to your point, if somebody actually wants to wait for a really good reason, you're not convincing them.
Absolutely.
But if you know that somebody is, about to have a baby or their job just moved and they want to wait for the sake of waiting, but it's not in their best interest, then what are a few things that you would probably want to chat with them about?
Yeah, first of all, in this one, we want to wait. The first objection is that it's a stall. It's not really objection.
Right.
So what my question would just be, what specifically is causing you to hesitate about this? Because I want to actually find out what it is. And they might say, well, you know what? I think prices are going to go up, or whatever else it is. So here's a few talking points that you can use. And again, all of these are in the bachelor program. The first thing is the prices may go down. We actually had a situation this past year where if you weren't buying into the market again, the prices went down by 0.6%. So that's something that's a very big reality. Also, if prices are on the rise, then they're going to actually miss out future gains on their new home.
Right.
So they're not going to get that. And especially if they're upsizing, because if they're upsizing to a house from a starter home to a new one, they're going to be getting the percentage gains on their new $700,000 home and not the same gains in their $400,000 home. So it's best that they move up quickly.
Right.
Also, interest rates may go up. That just happened. Anybody that was waiting, now interest rates go up and a buyers can afford less.
We had, don't remember who posted, it was either a mortgage specialist or a realtor, but somebody made a Facebook post saying if you would have bought and sold in January and they had a price point and then they put it for December.
Yep.
Terrible. Like you just instantly look at those numbers and think, I can't believe I waited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and that would, and last year was one of those years where everybody just thought, well, I'm just going to wait because it's what. And in a year like that, for you to still lose money on it, like not a good year.
And people often say, well, I want to wait until August and July when my flowers are in full bloom, and it's like, well, now the market's flooded, so seasonal changes happen as well.
Right.
So be careful with that one. Again, we're never forcing people or anything else, but we're giving them some perspective if it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that on the first slide that we had was don't tell them what you can show them.
Yes.
And I think sometimes just pulling some stats that show what pricing looks like throughout a year, I mean, that could be a really good thing to do in those situations as well.
Absolutely.
Let me show you what would have happened last year if you would have waited.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next one we have here is, so this is
number
this
two.
Is number two. Big one, will you cut your commissions?
This one is probably the one that people fear the most. A good statement just to make on this overall is that if you get asked this question, now some people just ask the question just because they're that type of person. They just ask all the time. Hey, I heard the commission is negotiable. Can you do it for less?
And a lot of people aren't bad people because they do that. A lot of people just ask that question, right?
Exactly, and no one's ever a bad person for it. But it's a good point. It's like they're not that grinder, the person that you have to do.
Necessarily.
They're just, my friend told me to ask. And sometimes you say, no, that's not something we do. And they're like, oh, okay, I just thought I'd ask. And you're off to the races. That's not one of the things that I have on this. But the other thing I just want to say is that if you get asked any one of these questions, typically, if they say they want to wait, well, you missed something in your presentation in terms of the qualification questions that you asked them. You didn't ask the right questions of them. You didn't get down to the motivation. Will you cut your commissions? You didn't demonstrate enough value in your presentation so that they can actually get to that point or they can understand what you do for your money. So I always say, look back at your presentation because you might not have communicated enough value from there. But as soon as someone asks that question to me, the first thing I say is absolutely. And people are like, what? Like, I was told to never cut your commissions. Well, for sure. There's two different ways, there's two different scenarios in which case I cut my commissions. Number one is if you buy another home. We're under contract, we get another firm deal on another home, you're doing both transactions with me, I'll give you $1,000 off, so I'm going to pay your legal fees or anything else, I'm getting 2 ends from it. Or if I introduce the buyer. From my advertising, I get a buyer, and again, we double end it. I'll also give them $1,000 off. So I always tell people, and I'll reduce my commissions under these two scenarios.
The thing that's nice about that is you answered yes.
Yeah.
Which is great. Which is great. To find a way to say yes is great.
And you guys don't have to have that philosophy, but if a client is doing 2 transactions with you right away, and I give them $1,000 back to help with their lawyer fees or something, that's something for me that is that's okay.
Totally.
The other thing, too, is I also say, let's say we're not doing that scenario. They just say, no, just on the other side. I say, well, let me break this down for you. Are you familiar with how commissions work? And they'll say yes or no. And I'll say, well, here's the deal. So we have 7 and 3, if that's the rate you're charging, is divided up into 3.5, 1.5 on each side. See, people think you're talking about 7 and 3, but we're going to offer 3.5, 1.5 to the other side. And by cutting the commissions, there's not going to be an incentive for the other realtor to work super hard to sell the property to the client. So you're cutting the commissions on both sides. Now it's 2.5 and 2.5, 2.5, 1.5, 2.5, 1.5.
Yeah.
Suddenly it puts you at a disadvantageous position. And then they might even say, well, I don't want them cut their commissions. I want you to cut your commissions. Well, then one of the things is, well, we're already taking on all the burden of the marketing costs for our 3.5, 1.5, which is half of what you believe we're getting paid. In addition to that, we have a very specific marketing plan. Which marketing items would you like me to remove from this 26-point plan that we put together?
Right.
And then they might say, well, maybe you don't have to do this or something. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I sincerely believe that I'd be misrepresenting you by not including that as part of your marketing plan. And my goal is to get you the highest price possible in the shortest period of time. And each one of our marketing pillars was designed specifically to achieve that goal. And right away. The other thing, that's that as far as like the other side. Now we've also heard people say things like, how hard will I protect your money if I'm not even able to negotiate my own commissions? You want a strong negotiator? I don't like that one as much personally. That doesn't sit well with me. Many of you can use that. Everything can be used if it's said in the right way and given the right scenario. But for the most part, I really like just saying, we offer all this value. We're only talking about 3.5, 1.5. And it's funny because the buyer gets paid 3.5, 1.5, and they don't incur any of the expenses. So, so that's how I handle that one.
I've heard one of our realtors in particular say, I don't do that because what I do for you, it's important that I do for somebody else. And every client I work with will always have 100% of me, and I will always do the best job. But I'm not going to cut here because fair isn't the right word. He obviously has a much better pitch for that. But I do think that to say I treat everybody the same, and this is what I do, and you'll never find out that I've worked harder or worked for less money for somebody else than you either. I feel like that's just, for some people, a bit of a fair approach.
Yep, totally. And that's it. You'll know your client the best. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about number 3. So number 3, we want to interview other agents. So this one is something that many people, you won't get around. Someone might have 2 appointments, 3 appointments, and they feel compelled to attend those appointments.
Yes. Well, and there's lots of education for buyers and sellers right now. I mean, if you go onto Rika's website, they'll tell you that you should be interviewing different agents, right? So I mean, I think you have to expect the fact that like somebody is saying, the real estate board is telling me to do that. So it's not an insult to you. It's, especially for a first-time home buyer. It's like, well, the governing body told me I should do this. Absolutely.
The other thing too is if you have that situation, we always like to get in first because every once in a while, the way that we handle this, the other agents don't get another opportunity to come in.
Because it was just so good the first time.
Exactly. You have such a compelling presentation. They want to get it going, and some of the things we're going to share. The big question that I like asking this is, what specifically are you looking for in an agent? So, I totally appreciate that. Let me ask you this. What specifically, this should be one of your questions anyways, are you looking for in a realtor? And they'll give you some items. And then from there, I like to say, have we demonstrated that? Are you comfortable that I can get the job done? Whatever it is. And I say, okay, well, here's the deal. This other agent may say that they have buyers potentially in the area. It takes a few days, even a week or more, to prepare the marketing for your property. If you're comfortable, I can get the job done. Why don't we get the listing signed up today? I am going to contact these other realtors to tap into the pool of buyers, and we'll get them in to see the property first, even before it goes on the market. And that way, we don't hesitate at all, run the risk of getting the neighborhood competition running up. I'll start the process today. I'll get in touch with them so that we get the best of both worlds. We get their buyer's pool as well as we get your marketing started immediately, and we don't have to hesitate on this.
Right.
The other thing is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with how the IDX works. What the IDX is, the central pool of properties that's available. We all have access to it, and we incentivize other agents to bring it. They get paid the same bringing the buyer on the other end. So even if it happens to be like a friend of a friend or something, they're going to get treated the same if they end up coming to sell it. So they're already incentivized to do that. And they'll see all the properties on the website. We'll even advertise on their website through the IDX agreement.
So that's a bit of a way to make somebody not feel bad about canceling the other 2 appointments.
That's right.
Which is important.
That's right. Absolutely. And the other side of it too is that, Kirsten, my clients only work with me because they choose to, not because I have to. And I do put a service agreement with all my listings. I don't actively sell, but I always did. And what it said is, here's a list of things we agree to do for you. If we cannot provide the service, or we don't provide a service and we can't provide it, remedy it within 72 hours, you're out of this agreement.
Right.
And that's it. And you can even have it occasionally when people say they can cancel at any time. but you only work with me because you choose to, not because you have to. So if you're not happy with me, you can cancel it and you can go somewhere else.
The other thing too that's interesting about we want to interview other agents. So we had there's actually one realtor in our area, not with CIR, who like that's his bus bench advertising is to interview 3 realtors.
Right.
And he's just that confident that he's going to look like a superstar.
Yeah.
So I think there's something about just saying I'm going to have a presentation in hopes of making other people look so bad that I want somebody to interview other people, and just being that supremely confident in what you're going to put together.
Totally.
The other thing about interviewing other agents is we had not a real estate situation, but we had a company come in to do something with our fireplace and gave us a quote on something. And they said, I really recommend that we're going to give you something. I strongly recommend you do this because there might be something that's a little bit of a better fit for you. You might want to compare a price. There's something about the fact that he just said that where it's just like, now I'm not going to.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like if you have that much confidence in what you're offering, and I probably would have, and he said that, and it's like, I now have no need to.
Totally.
Because you said that.
That's exactly right. That confidence showing that I'm not afraid of it, no problem.
Makes a difference.
Yeah. And I would even end that, one more thing to add just as an ending point, is I'd say, make sure you ask them these 3 questions where you get to dictate the conversation they have, and it's probably 3 things that only you can offer, and that sets you up even better.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay, our next one that
Number
we have
4.
is, number 4. We don't know if you are qualified for the job or if you are too new in the industry for our business.
Perfect. So this one, again, asking the question, what specifically you're looking for in an agent is a great clarifying question on that. Here's the thing, is when you're brand new in the business, you have a ton of past experience that you need to be able to translate forward as a relevant piece. I saw an ad the other day where a guy says, I've been building homes for 20 years, and now I have the opportunity to sell you one. And that was really cool because you're like, oh, geez, he's 20 years of experience, even though he was probably in his first year, but that's what the ad said. So it's great. I mean, another statement that I always had was, I'm in my first year and things are going incredible, but whatever you had previous to that, use that experience. But here's the thing. Just by being associated with CIR and with a brokerage that has the resources, the support, and the exposure that you have is something that just trumps everything. Right now, I don't know, we have 180, 200 people online right now. I'm sure there's been a listing that's been posted up in the chat, some banter about sending the information. Try to get a preview of a home that try and get 180 people in to preview your listing. Like, it'll never happen.
Absolutely.
So to get the exposure right there and the collaboration, plus the different support in terms of the marketing ideas, the tools, things like that, there's nothing like it out there. So talk to the power of the brokerage that you have behind you.
Yeah.
And even the team that you have, because you can have, I selected the best photographer in the industry, vetted, over 700 realtors, identify this photographer as being the best, the stager, the lawyer. It's impossible for me to be the expert at everything. I don't even try. That's why I employ the best team to work on the listing.
Well, and from the team perspective too, we look at our conveyance team and our accounting team, and whether you're new or you're not new, somebody's going to look over your paperwork 7 times before this is all said and done. So just by using it, even to talk about your management team and say, if you have to, yes, I'm new, but my office manager and I are going to be partnering on this experience for you to make sure that everything is double and triple checked and whatever. And it's probably going to be better than a busy agent who's rushing through and has done this 50 times and goes like this because they're so familiar. Nothing will be overseen because my team is going to make sure that this is done perfectly for you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge CIR advantage too, because that's a fact.
And now, yeah, exactly. And the next piece here, and I don't mean to actually, I don't mean this is, you can use this on either side. I've had it where I've wrote articles on why you should work with an experienced agent, why you should work with a new agent.
Totally. Like we're picking this, so if you're a new agent, like we're giving you things to talk about. We're not slamming either way,
exactly.
But you have to pick and choose for your position and do your best with it.
So you guys can use my story. My real estate course I did it in 4 days. I wrote the test after a week and a half. Now it's over 6 months of learning in order to do it, and the criteria to get in is a lot harder. There's a lot more barriers to entry than there used to be.
This is good.
So when you look back and you say, I always love this. It's like, let me fold out my materials. Let me explain the way the industry has transitioned. it used to be, and if you haven't been in the industry for longer than, if you've been in for longer than 5 years, you took this previous version of the course, even 3 years now, that you could basically breathe on a mirror to get in to get a real estate license. The education wasn't there. Now, that's not anybody's fault. I believe people can be great realtors. But the bottom line, it's a lot different. And I need you to think about where the world has changed. In 2007, out came the iPhone. 2010, 8 years ago, came the iPad. And now, 86% of searches are happening on mobile devices. This is my generation. The exposure that you're going to get for your listing needs to be through social media, needs to be through online sources, and having somebody that has a ton of experience doesn't mean that they now have the relevant experience to get results in today's marketplace. This is my generation, this is what I've studied, and this is now something that we're going to use to get you the massive amount of exposure.
And I have the
for your
most
property.
Advanced form of education
Absolutely.
On this than anybody in this
we are
industry
so up
in
to
the
date
last 2 years.
and everything else. The other thing you can talk about,
that's
so
good.
that you can say that. The other thing is that I don't have any other listings right now, which means you're going to get all my time. You're going to get every piece of me. So my full-time job is going to be to sell
Selling
your
your
property.
house.
And the
That's
other
great.
part is that, and obviously now you need to work on your presentation as well, because you should have communicated all of this in your presentation previous to that.
Yep.
And the last thing is, my clients work for me because they choose to. You can have a service guarantee as part of that.
Really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
All right, number 5. Is it number 5?
Number 5.
Thanks, Jordan. George's like, yes, it's number 5.
This is a tough one. I just being on the other end of this would suck, but we want to list high to try it out.
Yeah. Has anyone has anyone in the chat ever, on the meeting, ever had someone that thought their house should be worth a little bit more than it actually is, or they wanted to list it high at first because everything in life is negotiable and we need to leave some room for negotiation? The amount of room you need to leave for negotiation is like 2%. That's kind of where you look at the sales to listing, percentages. So 98% of list price is what it sells for, like 2%. So $400,000 home, 408, 410. That's the negotiation room you need to leave. That's it. Okay, so that is true. List price higher than what you expect for the seller price, but by 2%. That's it. The rest is an explanation, and that is typically if someone says we want to list high to try it out, and say you're putting yourself in a very dangerous position, and here is why. Now, first of all, you can actually pull charts that have the cost of waiting. It's very evident, and this is a traditional trend from the original list price down to how long it stays on the market. That's actually factual information. But let me tell you this: the most educated group of buyers right now are people that are set up with searches and have already been out looking at homes. Mm-hmm. So let's say that for that property, there's 55 people that are set up by searches with the thousands of realtors in Kreb and Kara, and are set up with searches, and now your property gets emailed out to them. This is the best group of buyers that knows everything out, and you're sending them an overpriced listing. So these people get this and say, this guy's out to lunch. Like, I can't believe this.
They've been looking at properties for the past 3 weeks that are reasonably priced.
Or exactly. They've been looking at properties that are reasonably priced, and they're like, so you're going to take the most active pool of buyers, and you're going to send them something that's not priced correctly? So then that group of buyers says, they poo-poo it, off it goes. Maybe they go in and take a look and just like, yep, for sure it's overpriced. People don't traditionally come back to it.
Well, and you just have a stigma about those people that they kind of suck.
That's right.
Right, like there's just something about it. So I feel like even if you were to start negotiating with those group of people from like a buyer perspective or the realtor perspective, it's just like, now I have to deal with these people who are obviously out to lunch, and I almost feel like you're not putting them on an even playing field already because you kind of just don't like them because they did that.
Right.
And they seem uneducated or just above everybody else by doing something that you psychologically.
And so most traffic happens in the first 2 weeks. So now you're waiting. There's 55 people that are just gone out of the pool. So now you're waiting for somebody new who's uneducated to come in, and that's a problem. So
even from a motivation standpoint too, right? It's like, okay, so something goes super super high, and then if 2 or 3 weeks later there's a price drop, it's like, well, obviously you don't have the stick-to-itness to let this sit for 6 weeks. So we know that you need to sell it. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have dropped the price in 2 weeks. So now we know that you really need to get this gone. So there's just so much that you can read into it.
Yeah, and the final piece of it too is that now you position yourself. You actually got the property emailed out to another group of buyers who were looking for, let's say, houses with triple garages, and now yours with a double garage was priced such that it had a triple. And now these people are looking at it being like, what? Like it doesn't even have a triple garage. Like this doesn't even have, you know, the stone countertops or the hardwood floor or anything else. It doesn't even have the bonus room that we were looking at. Like really, that's what they think that property is worth. So you put yourself into a tough position. Okay.
Super tough position.
Number 6.
We should almost. I'm gonna put work on our plate in front of a live audience, but we should almost come up with a really nice one-page piece that's for sellers specifically on like, here are the 20 reasons why this is such a bad idea, to just be like, there you go.
It's in our listing presentation. It's called The Fatal Pricing Mistake.
But that's a massive article. That's like 4 paragraphs.
Okay, we can put something together.
Yeah.
She will be happy to put something together for you.
I will be happy to put something together for you.
These are all in your bachelor program notes, by the way, and all the talking points that I'm giving you here are in the notes. So you can just click on the bachelor program in the virtual office in the professional development section and get all this.
Which is great.
All right, number 6.
Okay, number 6, we want to renovate first.
Yeah.
So somebody thinks that their home might not be worth selling yet.
So if they're planning on living in their home for a period of time, let's say they actually don't want to sell it for 6 months, yes, there's little tweaks they can do, but I want to take you to that Harrison Boker renovation guide. It's on the virtual office, the What You Need to Know section, 2017 renovation guide, and it says, here's the appraisal company, an appraisal company that goes in and says, this is how much it costs to do a renovation, to have professionals come in and do it. Here's the return back on market value. And everything is only 80% of value, 60% of value. Like, it's insane, the difference. So there's so many reasons why you shouldn't put a nickel in unless you're going to get a dime out. That's a classic real estate saying. Don't put a nickel in unless you can get a dime back out. So you want to be very careful with it because, number one, amateur renovations create problems. They might just say, they might give you no value. Unless they're a professional person that can get it for like a 30% discount, is the only time that might make sense. So here's the other thing too. Also, what's the return on their time? If they start this reno, which they thought is like, we'll be done in a week and a half, that turns into 2 months, well now we're looking at the issues with waiting. Our interest rate's going to go up. Is the seasonality of the market going to change? The listing competition, stuff like that. So you put yourself in a very precarious position. There's a lot of things you can do with staging. The number one thing that makes a difference to a house, the number one return on your investment is interior paint. So if someone says, we want to paint, make sure you have a great painter on staff, or not on staff, but someone that you can hire and recommend and get them into paint. That will make a difference. Get your stager in.
And that's fast. That's another one, right?
Like, you'll be up in a week and a half.
Yeah. I was reading an article on Airbnb for people who have Airbnb, and I think this is relevant, but for people who have Airbnb rentals, and apparently the ones that do the worst are ones where in reviews it says like there were stains on the carpets. So I think, and they said that if you actually want people to come in, the biggest thing that you can do for good reviews is to not have dirty carpets. And in the same thing they said, and the fastest, easiest thing for you to do is to get somebody to put in a new carpet. So I feel like something like that for an older home could also be easy because a carpet is like an in and out one-day job.
You got it. And if you're going to do something like that with carpet especially, invest in the underlay. The carpet itself will feel better if you have better underlay.
Yeah, but those are quick, easy things.
Absolutely.
Versus like, let's tear apart our kitchen.
Totally. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
All right.
Next one.
Number 7. Go ahead.
We want to think about it.
Yeah, which again is not a real objection. It's more of a stall. And if someone says they want to think about it, my gosh, for me, I'm like, I'm going to let you think about it.
Yeah, it's not a small decision.
Because now you can really tip over into trying to sell like you're trying to manipulate them. I know some people that says, okay, well, I'm going to go in the next room. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to talk, and I'll be right back. I mean, that's a classic sort of sales line. Don't use that one. I don't like it. My question to them again is, what specifically is causing you to hesitate? Like, give me the source of your hesitation, because obviously there's some questions here. Because typically, indecision is lack of clarity. So help them with that. How much time would they like? Another thing you can do is you can say, to save time, why don't we get the listing signed up today, so I don't have to come back, and we'll post date it for 72 hours. If you decide to terminate, we'll put it right here. You can let me know. But this way, I can start getting the foundation of your marketing set up so that we'll be ready to pull the trigger. How does that sound? And also, remember, with my service guarantee, if you guys need out, you guys can get out.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but again, if someone really wants to think about it, my biggest thing is
you have to let them think
how much time would you like? Okay. So we can get this signed up today, post date it, and you guys can let me know. But that way, I don't have to come back. I don't have to spend another 2 hours of your time either, and it's a bit of an efficient way to do it.
Take your few days if you need it.
Absolutely.
That's good. Okay, the next one, objection, we want lots of advertising, which again, I mean, this isn't really, this is really an objection. This is just a big statement.
Yeah.
We want lots of advertising.
That's right. And when they typically talk about lots of advertising these days, they want big print ads is what they want. They're thinking about magazines. They're thinking about different things like that. So my question is always, well, what type of advertising are you thinking about? And now in the National Association of Realtors profile of not buyers and sellers, which is the what you need to know section, it's in the sellers section, and it's the buyer section, and it's how the buyer actually, where the buyer actually found the home. Less than 2%, it might even be down to less than 1%, of the homes sell because they found it in a print ad. So, so here's the thing. I have to choose where to invest your money, unless instead of it being 7 and 3, we want it to be 33 and 3, because I need that extra $30,000 to market your property.
Right.
So I have to be efficient with your marketing. And I'm going to show you Avenue Magazine and look at these realtors. This is not to sell properties, because here is the ad. This is to promote themselves. So I am going to spend your money where the eyes are actually looking, because I believe in representing you first and foremost. So based off of the research, here's what we're going to do. Show them your Google Ads campaigns, show them your Facebook campaigns, show them the money you've invested in your website, landing pages, things you're going to do for it. They're online-based, Kijiji, different types of advertising. You're still spending money, there's no question, but you're advertising where it's done. So it's important to advertise where the buyers are looking. Also, if you want some more advertising or something you can't live without, we could also do a retainer where we actually get a little bit more advertising. This is very common with condo developers. They might give a $10,000, $15,000, $50,000 advertising budget, whatever it is. So we can take some money up front in order to do some advertising for you if you have your heart set on some specific areas that you want exposure in. And again, if you have a custom home, let's say the home is a couple $1 million or something, instead of just doing 7 and 3, you might do 12 and 3, and $5,000 is put directly towards specific advertising ways. Now they might say, oh my gosh, like why would I ever pay you more? It's like, well, the value they're going to get back on a $1.5, $2 million home for an extra $5,000 investment is worth it.
Right, and the big one right now, if people are pushing for, in terms of a perspective of what's equal. So especially for higher value homes, there's something about a lot of people that want to open up a nice magazine or a nice thing and see their home, because for them it's prestigious and everybody they know gets to see this expensive home that they live in. So that's just part of it, is they don't want their friends and family and neighbors to see that they live in this house. They want it to be presented as such. So the big one right now, if they want print for the same money, is now video. That's the complete way that you have to go. Is not print, do video. So I think that getting some good information on video pricing, get a videographer, kind of in your back pocket to be able to present what that looks like, and then even to be able to track, to say, I can't track how many people are going to see your ad, I can track how many people see this video. We can actually put money to make more people see this video. If it's in a print ad, there's absolutely nothing I can do to make any number of people see this. So I think that having a page in your listing presentation for certain properties on video now is really important, because that's going to be a way to handle a print objection.
Yeah, and you get to make an investment as well in your own business too, to say, okay, you know what, I am going to spend a bit more money for exposure to get this property out there to potentially pick up other clients. This question of we want more advertising usually comes part and parcel with the we want to list it for more higher price as well. So now you're putting an overpriced listing that you're investing a bunch of money into. There's this saying that you'll have to approach gently. And you can even say we have this saying in the real estate industry, it's a big tongue-in-cheek, but it's true that bigger signs don't make dumber buyers. So bigger signs don't make dumber buyers. Just by splashing your property everywhere isn't going to make somebody pay an additional $60,000 for your home.
Absolutely.
So that's it. All right, and we have one left, and then we'll wrap it up. Kirsten, number 9. Is this one personal? Is this one very personal to you, Kirsten?
This one's very personal to me. We want to buy first.
So, we want to buy first is, and I believe a happy wife is a happy life, or whatever it is. But Kirsten and I got into this trap of buying first. We said we're going to want to move. She really wanted to buy a property. there's some big issues that this can create. And I have some friends going through this right now that are in a very difficult position.
My family in Toronto had to pay a double mortgage for 2 months because they bought first, listed their condo, and it took more time, and they had to carry their mortgage for 2 months.
That's right. So they bought this property, and this is a good point. The market was coming down. It was finally affordable in their price range, so they jumped on it. But the problem was that the place they're selling in the same market of it coming down, and now they got caught. And how stressed out were they that they had to make double mortgage payments?
It completely ruined all enjoyment of the fact that they got to finally buy a house, and they were so happy to have one.
Yeah, you're paying thousands of dollars each month. So the biggest thing is that your home doesn't sell, and now possession's coming in, you have to buy first. Now, the other thing is now we're in a position where we could have potentially carried both homes, which is fine, but again, it's thousands of dollars. So then you have the sense of urgency saying, we have to get ours sold. So we have to get ours sold. And now you're reducing your price rather than being patient and waiting to just snatch the first buyer that came in. And we even talked about it today. We believe there's a potential. We might have gotten more money for our house if we had listed on the open marketplace. We don't know. Okay, I'm not going to. With that look, I'm not going to start. but here's the thing: is that
the only thing that I think, and again, this is come from someone who's recently in this position. The only thing that's scary, and if I were to say, like, the realtor on the other end would need to say to me, is that if you love your home and you're being forced to move because of a certain situation, so it could be your office moved, or suddenly you're pregnant, or you're divorced, or your mom, or whatever it is, and you have to say, like, I have this home that I love, that I have to give away, and I have no guarantee that within the time I need to move somewhere else, I'm going to be able, because when you move into a home, you don't assume you're going to be there for 3 years. It's kind of scary to say, I feel like I might be forced into buying something that I don't love, that I'm going to have to live in for the next 10 years. So I almost think that a realtor has to say, okay, well, if you had to live in someone's basement for a month, or let's talk about what storage options would be. Like, worst case scenario, you have to move all of this stuff into here, and you have to, what would that cost? Because that's really, really scary to say that I am going to have no idea what I'm going to move into, but I'm not going to have my home anymore. It's scary.
You're exactly right. And here's the thing, is that you have to do a cost-benefit analysis.
And that's a big one.
So the reality here is that you might have to carry both mortgages. And if you can't carry both mortgages, you might have to walk away from the property you put the offer in on. Because if you put the offer, hopefully you're putting on it subject to sale of your home.
Yeah.
And if someone activates that 48-hour or 72-hour clause, are you prepared to have your heart broken because you couldn't close on this property? You found the perfect one, and maybe that's a risk analysis. So financially, are you prepared to take the risk? All these types of things. And so it's very, very important to understand that. Plus, if someone brings me a special clause offer, they've reduced their negotiating power.
Of course.
I am not going to give up or make so many concessions versus a totally clean offer that has very few, like a short condition period, pre-approval letters with it, things like that. I am going to be, from the listing realtor standpoint, more likely to give that person the benefit of the doubt than someone who has a special clause offer, and this house, you haven't even sold it. And it's like, sorry, you haven't even sold your house yet? I understand you guys need to do this right now in this marketplace, but it's like, come on. My buyer or my seller is going to get paid a premium with your special clause offer.
Of course.
So
I think you just need to have a lot of empathy when you talk somebody through that situation, because most people are selling their home because they're thinking of what's next. So if what's next is not something that they can touch right now, and it's based off of something, that just makes it a bit unscary, because there's no guarantee that you're going to be happy if you have to make a quick decision on a purchase. So
2 things I've done on this before in the past, which is a great way to sort of help alleviate some of their fears or understand that they're in a better place.
Let me buy first. That's what you did in the past.
I knew the cost.
There were 3 things.
And I was prepared for it, yes. But the other side of it, too, is that I can take the person out to go and see a few properties and say, hey, if we find a couple that you like, and we say, it's not the end of the world if these are the ones, or these are the ones that we want to look at, would you agree there's some options out there?
That's helpful.
And first of all, it's great. Second of all, we just paint out worst case scenario. Okay, so you want to take the time, we want to capitalize on the market today, because now it goes into the we want to wait period.
Yeah.
We want to buy first, and then we want to wait. Well, hold on. Let's look at the cost of waiting as an issue, And now let's say, worst case scenario, what would you do for 2 months if it took you a little bit more time to find your home?
And I think that that's a good one.
And then we do that and say, okay,
What
great.
does that look like?
Yeah, so now we get out of a home, we have the money in our pocket, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank account, and you have the freedom to go out and buy something.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, but I know that it's devastating to people. We have a friend of ours right now who did a long build, and their houses aren't sold yet, and they are scrambling. And to the point they're going to have to pay thousands of dollars in bridge financing, plus the cost of the mortgages. Like, oh, it's just, it's awful. So, okay.
Absolutely.
So, hopefully, those 9 objections, you guys remember that this is not a manipulation thing. This is a matter of giving people perspective, and follow your process. Validate their concern, clarify it, educate them, and talk it through. These notes are available. This is page 155 through 159 of the Bachelor Program, week 5, working with sellers. So you're able to find those.
In the professional development category of the page of the virtual office, there's an article and template database, and you can find the notes in that. Is that correct? There's a folder in that?
Yeah, you bet. All the notes completed and ready to go.
And then also, so the article that we were talking about earlier, the fatal pricing mistake, which is great. I was just mentioned something at a glance bullet point, but that article is in the listing presentation. So if you download the listing presentation and you just want that article in and of itself, you can just save page 20 or whatever it is, and then you can print that out and have something awesome that you can put in your own listing presentation if you don't use ours. It is a very good article.
You bet.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks so much for tuning in.